Yeah, I think he's a good prospect. I mean, I think their O-line last year with the style of offense they played was really a negative. It was that spread offense, a lot of air raid principles. That will change this year. I would say at his core, he's a pocket quarterback. He's got the arm talent to make all the throws. He can sit on his back foot. He can drive the football. He can make tight window throws. I think he's a good prospect. I don't think he's a high level, like number one or number two pick prospect, but I think he's a good prospect.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a teaching tutorial Thursday. Yes, we know that's redundant. That's kind of the joke. What's not redundant is how awesome it is to have Greg Cosell join us every single Thursday. The legend from NFL Films. You know, this time of year is interesting because I usually spend half the time asking Greg about guys that are in the news for various reasons. Maybe they get a contract, maybe they don't get a contract, maybe they get injured, and I want Greg's opinion on these players. And then we always dive into other football topics, whether it's trends or maybe it's things we see in the preseason games, or maybe it's some of the college quarterbacks that I promise I'm going to get to with Greg eventually. Maybe today is that eventually. It's been a while, by the way, since I gave out some winners. I don't know if I said we're presented by DraftKings. I should have. And I should tell you that we love those of you that spread the word via social media, whether it's at Ross Tucker NFL or at Ross Tucker Pod. Jay Grover did a quote post on Twitter X Twitter, whatever we're calling it. It's that easy, Jay Grover. Now all you need to do is email me, ross@rosstucker.com, and let me know your address, and I'll send you an awesome press pass from last season before I start stacking them up for this season. Sponsor confirmation email winner. How about Ben Sampson? All he did was give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and then forward me the screenshot. That's pretty easy for people to do. Thank you very much, Ben. Again, Ben already included his address. He was assuming he would be a winner. That's fine, Ben. I like that. You are. And then the YouTube shout out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. I record a video on my phone and send it to you guys so that you can get a shout out. It's like a free cameo. Those cameos that people pay for me to do sometimes, you get one for free just by subscribing to youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL and commenting. So Josh had a quote saying he would take Tua over Jordan Love because we had talked about that, earlier this week. I'm actually going to ask Greg that momentarily. And as a matter of fact, why don't we just dive into it? It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Okay, Greg, let's start with some of these guys that are in the news. And I want to start with DJ Moore, yet another receiver getting a big-time contract. This time it's DJ Moore. I feel like for whatever reason, Greg, maybe it's because he was in Carolina and they weren't very good. Maybe it's now he's been in Chicago for, I don't know. It feels like he's going a little bit under the radar. Boy, studying for that Falcons-Bears game last year and then doing that game in Week 17, the Falcons could not cover him. He was very, very impressive. What do you see from Moore? Obviously, the Bears see something to give him another new deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think the starting point, and we'll get to the quarterbacks too, the money's the money. The money's just going to keep going up. And when guys, come up who are good players, they're going to get paid. So I never even really look at the money situation. But DJ Moore, I really have liked him since he came out of Maryland. He was a first-round pick. He's big. He can run. I believe he ran a 4.4 when he came out, and that surprised people. But I thought his tape showed that, and there's nothing in the NFL that has changed my view of him. He can work between the numbers because he's got great size. He can catch those in-breakers. He's very good run after the catch because of his competitiveness, his size, and his deceptive speed. I mean, he's a number one receiver for the Bears. We can sit here and make lists and debate whether he's as good as this guy or that guy, but he's a number one type receiver in terms of his traits, and he's certainly a number one receiver on the Bears. And they were not going to let him walk, and he's critical to what they want to do. So I've always really liked DJ Moore.
You know what's interesting? I'm trying to sit here and think, Greg, about who the quarterbacks are that he's had.
Yeah.
I think in Carolina, it was, a couple years of Sam Darnold? I'm trying to remember.
Maybe Baker? Was he there when Baker was there for that short period?
Yeah, I don't know if he had any Cam Newton.
Yeah.
And then obviously last year in Chicago with Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent. My point is, he's been really productive.
Yes.
And 5'11", 210. He's got a thick power, almost a running back body, Greg.
Yep.
5'11", 210. You mentioned the thickness and the size, but you go back, started at, in 2018 at age 21. So he's got 6 years in the league, 5 in Carolina, 1 in Chicago, but I don't know that he's ever had a top half of the league quarterback.
No, I don't think he has, and he's put up good numbers. He does have. I don't want to say he's exactly like A.J. Brown, but although I think in terms of the way they're built, Brown's probably a little taller, but I think in the physicality, the toughness, and sort of the deceptive vertical ability. I mean, neither one would be viewed, although 4.4 for Moore is obviously fast, but neither one would probably be viewed as, he's a true vertical explosive guy, but they can get vertical. Moore's a pretty complete receiver.
Interesting note on him, Greg. He's a Philly guy.
I know.
He went to Imhotep Charter, and they probably had at least 3, maybe more than that, prospects that were ranked higher than him. They had guys going to bigger schools than Maryland. He was they didn't throw the ball very much. They didn't have a great quarterback. He was kind of the afterthought, which is really interesting to see. He's had by far the best pro career of those guys. On the flip side, that's positive news, a guy getting a contract. Negative news is when there are injuries. We talked about Mekhi Blackmon last week. Now, the Rams lose Kendrick, the cornerback who played well for them last year. And then the Cowboys losing Sam Williams. He's their third edge rusher.
Yeah.
They have Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. Third edge rusher, I think you could argue, Greg, is like a top 20 position on a team because of how many snaps they get, especially when you move Micah around as much as they do.
Great point. A great point, because you'd have to assume he was going to play almost all the time in those pass rush situations because Micah could be anywhere. Sam Williams, he's a very talented guy. Now, he's had some off-the-field stuff, but the Cowboys drafted him, and he's flashed when he's played, and he's the kind of guy that you keep expecting now. You would have expected this year with probably more snaps to really come on. He's got size, he's got length, he can rush the quarterback. That's a big, big loss because obviously they lost Torrance Armstrong, they lost Dante Fowler. I think both are now with Dan Quinn with the Commanders. So you're 100% right. He's the next guy. After Micah and Lawrence. And Lawrence, who still had a solid year, is clearly getting older. I believe he's over 30 now, if I'm not mistaken. So you would have had to expect that Williams was going to get meaningful snaps. That's a big loss.
So it's a great point because he was pretty productive in limited snaps because they did have Armstrong and Fowler. They were able to come at you in waves.
Yep.
And, for Cowboys fans out there, this is one of the unintended consequences of their salary cap and contract issues right now. They don't really have depth anywhere, Greg.
No.
They don't have depth on the O-line. They don't have depth on at edge rusher because they couldn't retain these guys because
and they have
of
guys
where
they
they're
need
at.
to sign. That's the other thing. I mean, they've got Dak, they've got C.D. Lamb, who I believe he's holding out, right? C.D. Lamb, he's
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, and the thing about Williams, which really makes him appealing as well, is he can line up both on the edge and inside. Like they could put Micah in pass rush situations, Micah and Lawrence on the outside and Sam Williams inside. And Williams can do that.
Let's get to the quarterbacks that both signed on Friday. 6 days ago now, but it was the day after you and I do our show here
Yep.
on Thursdays. And It's Jordan Love and it's Tua. And I've asked you about both those guys a lot over the years, so we don't need to rehash how you feel about each one. I guess here's my statement, Greg. I want to know if you agree or disagree. I think you agree because you've called Tua a certain type of player. You've talked about what he does well and what he's not really capable of doing. What I think is interesting about them getting similar contracts on the same day, my belief, and I think Tua's injury history plays into this a little bit, Greg, but my belief is, let's just say, which would never happen, they both hit the open market. I think a bunch of teams would be all over Jordan Love and they'd pay him whatever.
Right.
I'm not sure that's the case with Tua. I think the combination of injury history plus the type of player he is and probably the belief, whether they verbalize it or not, that he's a certain type of player in Mike McDaniel's offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I guess I think it's just interesting that they got similar contracts, Greg, because I feel like on an actual market that there'd be a lot more interest in Love than Tua. Agree, disagree?
I would agree with that. But I also think we have to understand one thing. First of all, when a quarterback comes up, the money is the money, as I said about the receiver situation. So that's not really a relevant thing to me. So, a lot of people, and I've heard people say, well, if I'm Miami, I wouldn't sign Tua because he's not great. He's not at the level of the Mahomes, the Allens, the Burrows. That's not really relevant for this reason. Let's say you decide as an organization, you're Mike McDaniel, okay? Your offense the last couple of years has really been good. Last year, Tua played every game, led the league in passing. We don't need to rehash what he is. We've done that, okay? But the bottom line is, let's say you decide, well, he's not that guy. Well, then what are you going to do? Quarterbacks, Ross, don't fall out of the sky. We know, Mike McDaniels knows, and we know that Tua can be highly, highly efficient in the context of that offense with that personnel. We don't need to sit around and compare him to other guys. In that offense, he's really, really efficient. Now, we can have a debate as to the reason for that efficiency, and that's fine. He's not as physically gifted as Jordan Love. No one would argue that. He's just not as physically gifted. Love is 6'4", 220, throws the ball better. Now, I would argue Tua has better pure timing than Love. Tua's strength is, he's a great timing and rhythm thrower, a great window thrower. That's his strength. He's maybe the best in the league at that. But if you're just talking about pure physical traits for the position, you take Love, no question.
It's a great point. Nobody ever has, the people that say don't pay these guys never really have a great alternative.
No, that's,
you know what I mean?
That's what always
gets me. What are you
going
to
to
do, trade for Mahomes? Good luck.
Yeah, that's what always gets me. It's like, well, he's not worth it. Okay, fine. So now who's going to play quarterback for you? That I remember that happened for years and years with Tony Romo, who everybody knew was good, but never, a lot of people never thought he was quite great. And I used to think to myself, okay, so if Tony Romo's not the quarterback, who's going to be the quarterback? These guys don't just drop out of the sky. So, and by the way, everybody thinks it's a negative, and they're so wrong when they talk about marriage of scheme and player. That is not a negative, Ross. You know that. You played in the league. That's what coaches are trying to do. That's what good coaches do. They understand a player's strengths and limitations, and they play to it. There's not 20 transcendent quarterbacks who can do anything and everything. There's only a very few of those guys. In fact, Josh Allen, who I think we'd all agree is pretty gifted, may be the most physically gifted quarterback in the league, which is not saying the best, but the most physically gifted. He's not a timing and rhythm thrower like Tua is. Tua is way better than Josh Allen at that particular element of the game.
Yep. That is a good point. And another good point is that Labatt Blue Light is delicious. If you want to take things to the next level this weekend, like I will be, drink some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. Speaking, Greg, of quarterbacks, I wanted to ask you about a couple of these college quarterbacks. If you remember, we did talk about Carson Beck a couple weeks ago. We talked about some of the traits that we're looking for. and you even said how it's changed a little bit in terms of,
Yep.
you put more importance on second reaction than you used to. Although you also said that, coaches won't say that second reaction is more important than the first reaction. Let's talk about some of the guys this year. And I guess I'm curious to know what you've seen from Shedeur Sanders, because obviously he's been a hot topic. Anything with Colorado football is a hot topic. But we talked about Carson Beck, some of the other guys that people are talking about: Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers. Let's start with Shedeur, Deion's son, the quarterback at University of Colorado.
Yeah, I think he's a good prospect. I mean, I think their O-line last year with the style of offense they played was really a negative. It was that spread offense, a lot of air raid principles. That will change this year. Pat Shurmur is now the offensive coordinator there in Colorado, and people can say what they want, but Pat Shurmur will focus on protection, and that's critical because he was under such duress last year that there were games where I watched where it was just hard for him to play. I would say at his core, he's a pocket quarterback. He's got the arm talent to make all the throws. He can sit on his back foot. He can drive the football. He can make tight window throws. I wouldn't call him a playmaker. He's like Carson Beck in that regard. He can run for a first down, but he's not a playmaker. But he certainly can make throws on the move. He can run for a first down when demanded. I think that one thing you'd really like to see more of, but it was not really part of their offense, and again, this is college football, is you didn't really see him make a lot of throws between the numbers. Those kind of, window throws that are so important in the NFL. And again, I think you'll see more of that within the context of the new offense. So we'll see. But I think he's a good prospect. I don't think he's a high level, like number 1 or number 2 pick prospect, but I think he's a good prospect.
I'll be interested to see how he is with Shurmur in the new offense. I think they have like a whole new offensive line.
Yeah, I think they got the number 1 rated, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, I thought they got the number 1 rated offensive tackle in the country. He'll be a freshman, of course, but I'm sure he's going to start.
Yeah, they did. His name's Jordan Seaton. He'll be playing left tackle from IMG.
Yeah.
I'll just say this, Greg. It's hard to just take 5 guys and just throw them together on the offensive line. I mean,
well, you would know that better than I, but I know that for sure.
I mean, you need reps, you need all those things. What about the young man? It's funny because earlier this week, Emory Hunt felt like he was the best quarterback prospect in the SEC on the College Draft podcast, which is becoming more and more popular. Jalen Milroe from Alabama, Greg, he's an interesting one. Got benched earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the year was playing pretty well. He is fast. You talk about looking like a running back. He definitely looks like a running back.
Yeah. I mean, Milroe's a strong, dynamic athlete. I mean, you look at his body type, he looks like Jalen Hurts. He's got that kind of thick body and he's straight line fast. He certainly can make plays outside of structure. But I think, I studied him in great detail because, I mean, obviously he's at Alabama. He's going to be their starter. I think there's 4 critical areas of pocket play in which he needs to improve. He's got to recognize coverage quicker. I think he's just got to see it quicker and process it quicker. He's got to have a better feel for where to go with the ball within the timing and structure of the route concept versus the coverage. And he's got to be able to navigate the pocket better. I'm not talking about running out of the pocket. I'm talking about pocket movement and navigate the pocket. There were a lot of throws, Ross, and this is what I do. There were a lot of throws last year that were completions where he was late with the throw, okay? But it's college football, and you can still complete those throws. Those throws would not be completions in the NFL. So he's got to be quicker in what he sees. So where he needs to improve are the subtleties, the nuances, the details of pocket play. We know that he's a big physical athlete who can make dynamic outside of structure plays.
And some of that might happen this year with Kalen DeBoer.
Could well happen.
As his coach and or just more experience, more
without question.
More
but,
time.
I mean, that's what the tape showed from last year. And, again, you watch these guys when they have another year to play. I take detailed notes, obviously, but I'm very cognizant of the fact that they can improve. Guys don't necessarily change athletically. In other words, a guy, let's say a receiver who runs a 4.7 is not going to run a 4.38. That's not going to happen. But when you start talking about the subtleties of playing a position, whatever the position is, and I think you would agree, even offensive line, hand usage, foot, all those little subtleties, if you're coached well and you can assimilate that coaching, you can improve in those areas. So Milroe needs to improve in the subtleties of the position.
No question. And we'll get a chance to talk about some of the other guys, including Quinn Ewers, next week. Greg, fantastic stuff. As always, check him out on social media so you always know what he's up to at Greg Cosell. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
Man, I enjoy talking with Greg. You know what else I've been really enjoying, by the way, this summer, Jack? Smirnoff vodka, water, and 3 limes, 2 or 3 limes to give it that little extra flavor. It's just tasty. Going out to dinner with my wife. The girls have been at camp, so Friday night, Saturday night, get to a restaurant. Yeah, I'll take Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. By the way, an official vodka partner of the NFL, which is pretty cool. The perfect vodka for crafting delicious cocktails, easy to make and versatile for any and all fans over 21. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer and head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff, #21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Tux Takes.
All right, Ross, the NFL, they are testing Sony's Hawkeye technology for measuring first downs during some preseason games.
That'll be interesting. I don't know if they're doing any of my games yet, but that would be cool if they did. My first game is a week from tomorrow, Eagles at the Ravens. So obviously very much looking forward to that. But no, I haven't. I don't know if they're doing my games or not. I think this would be good if they can just say, yes, it's a first down. No, it's not a first down without having to bring the chain gang on. That would certainly be an improvement and a positive. That would save some time, especially when there's like chain malfunctions, which, by the way, never used to happen, but now they happen a lot. I don't really understand that. But, the biggest issue that will always have to be done by a human is spotting. Where is the ball when the knee or the elbow or whatever touches the ground?
Couple contract and injury news. Patriots, they give Devon Godchow a 2-year extension, and the Rams, they lose left guard Jonah Jackson for 6 weeks with a bruised scapula.
Godshaw. You kind of said Godchow, I think. Godshaw. Although up there in New England, maybe it's Godchowda. Godchowda. How do you feel right now if you're Matthew Judon and everybody on the team is getting a contract extension other than you, and you're the best player on the team? No wonder he's frustrated. I don't blame him. They've given out like 10 contracts. It's like they're trying to make him feel bad. Like, let's give everybody a new deal except the best player on the team. I don't blame you, Matthew. Fight for your right to party. As for Jonah Jackson, he got a lot of money from the Rams in free agency to leave Detroit and go to the Rams. So I don't know how you bruise your scapula, by the way, with shoulder pads on. That's a new one for me. I don't know how that happened, but that's not good because he's trying to get continuity with a new group of guys, new offensive line. So 6 weeks, even if he's back by the opener, it's a lot of reps that he's missed.
And we've got some other news. Texans edge rusher Danico Autry, he is out 6 games for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing drug policy. Carolina Panthers, they placed running back Rashad Penny on the reserve/retired list. The Bills, they signed safety Kareem Jackson. Eagles signed veteran offensive lineman Nick Gates. And the Giants ink lineman Greg Van Roten.
So I just don't understand. Autry came out and went out of his way to say he didn't knowingly take a banned substance. The guys like him or Tayshaun Gibson that have been in the league for as long as they have, I have like no compassion, and honestly, I don't really believe them. they're very well aware that you're responsible for everything you put in your body. And so the tainted supplement deal, it's like, unless you come out and say the name of the supplement company and the supplement you took and sue them, I'm going to choose not to believe you. Rashad Penny retires with the best yards per carry in NFL history for more than 300 carries. That's wild. Kareem Jackson came on the show last year while he was getting suspended left and right. And the Eagles and Giants both feeling like they need some experienced veteran O-linemen, at least for camp, although I'd be surprised if Van Roten didn't make the team for the Giants. Fellow Ivy Leaguer, Penn Quaker, getting it done for a long time in the NFL, even played in the CFL for a while. Super proud of him. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. Man, I love when you guys get one of these for a loved one and forward me the email, ross@rosstucker.com. I say just go and throw your email address in there so you get the email a month before Valentine's Day or Mother's Day or whatever with the code in it. Backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.